When I first found out I was giving a talk on determination, the academic side of me, the professor side of me, went straight to the research. I wanted to see what are psychologists saying about determination, what are sports psychology practitioners saying about determination, what are people in the realm of coaching and leadership. If you can't tell, I'm big on sports, so that's the research I went into. What are coaching and leadership experts saying about determination? And after an embarrassingly long amount of time looking into the research, have you ever looked up a YouTube video and then the next thing you know, it's like 7 hours later, you're 30 videos in and you're not sure how life kind of got you where you were? That was me at the research. I'm like, okay, I need to pause, step on the brakes, take a step back. And so I took a step back and I shifted directions a little bit and started to reflect on moments where I felt like I had demonstrated determination. And I started to think about how could I share that with all of you, kind of like a blueprint of here's how I, Victoria, demonstrated determination, and here's how you can too. Here's kind of a toolkit for you. Now, the thing about both of those ideas is that neither of them really resonated with me. Neither of them got me super excited to talk about what I was going to talk about. So then I started to shift again. There was a lot of shifting in the prep process for this. And I started to think about TED Talks that I had watched in the past, podcasts that I had listened to in the past, and thought about what caught my attention and then kept my attention with those things. And what I started to notice is that the TED Talks that I liked, the podcasts that I liked, they all told a story, a personal story about a time where they had experienced some sort of setback, some sort of challenge, some sort of obstacle, and then they reflected on how they got through that challenge, how they got through that setback, and they shared some strategies. And so what I'm going to do with you today is share a story of a time where I lacked any resemblance of determination, and then I'm going to reflect on that experience and look at the lessons that I learned from that lack of determination, and then share a strategy with you of something that I might have been able to do in those moments to help me kind of reignite that determination, reignite that motivation, and re-explore that passion. So that's my plan for today. So growing up, I had an older sibling. Does anyone in here have an older sibling? A few of us, yeah. So I had an older sibling. And if you have an older sibling, you know that you want to be just like your older sibling. I wanted to do everything that my older sibling was doing. And so I started playing softball, mainly because my sister was playing softball. And I quickly learned that softball was something that I loved to do. I loved the sense of camaraderie that came with being on a team. I loved the challenge of learning a new skill, of messing up and learning from that. I loved the competitiveness that is just inherent with sport. You can ask anyone in my family or even my fiance. I'm a very competitive person. And so I was really drawn to that aspect of sport. And it, like I said, quickly became something that I loved to do. I was having fun. I was challenging myself. I got to travel all over the country to play weekend-long tournaments. And as I got older, the prospect of playing in college was becoming a reality for me. And when you're a young athlete, that prospect is everything that you dream of, right? You can't wait to be a college athlete. You can't wait to have that experience. And I know that I was so fortunate to be able to have that opportunity, to be able to have that experience to play at that level. And so I started to go on my recruiting visits. And when you go on your recruiting visits, you're kind of sold this dream of what college athletics is going to look like. And at the time, I was 17, and I absolutely bought into this dream of what college athletics was going to look like. Now, unfortunately for me, what I realized when I got to college was that that dream was not everything that I had been sold. And unfortunately, it fell quite short to the dream that I had been sold. So when I look at my experiences in college, the thing that's so interesting is when you're getting recruited, so when you're going on your visits to all of these schools, you are getting the best of the coaching staff, you're getting the best of the athletic department, you're getting the best of everything. You're kind of getting the A-team when you go on your recruiting visit. And when I got to college for my freshman year, I very quickly realized that the head coach I had met on my recruiting visit was not the same head coach that I was going to play for the next 4 years. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about the coaching side of things because I do really want to reflect on kind of my own experiences, but I also think that the coaching is incredibly important in the context of my experiences. In college, unfortunately, the environment that created was not one that promoted thriving or optimal performance, but also didn't promote optimal well-being. It was really an environment that was rooted in power, in control, in fear, in manipulation. We as teammates were constantly pitted against each other in very unhealthy ways. And this coach really had a way of making me feel like I was worthless. Even though I felt like I was doing everything that a good college student needed to be doing. I was averaging a 3.5 GPA as a student athlete. I was attending every practice, every study session, every game, every workout, and being a consistent top performer in all of those workouts. But he still had a way of making me feel like nothing I was doing was ever good enough. And in fact, everything that I was doing was just simply setting me up for failure. Now, couple that coaching with the fact that at the time, I really had a wavering sense of confidence in my sporting abilities. I experienced a lot of negative self-talk. I was engaging in a lot of self-doubt behaviors, and I was really lacking motivation at the time. You see, when I got to college, I very quickly realized that so much of my identity was wrapped up in how I performed as an athlete. And so any failure on the field, any mistake on the field, wasn't just a failure as a softball player, it was a failure as a human being. And this really took a toll on my self-worth. This really took a toll on my self-confidence. Because of this, I really started to develop an immense fear of failure because, again, failure wasn't just you made a mistake as a softball player. I developed pre-performance anxiety because I was so afraid of making a mistake. And again, I just continued to lose that motivation. I continued to lose that drive to want to try really hard in my sport. And so I really struggled for the next few years. I got to my senior year, and I dreaded going to practice, absolutely dreaded it. I would find any fathomable excuse not to go to practice because the thing that once brought me so much joy, the thing that once brought me so much happiness, became the thing that caused me the most stress and the thing that caused me the most anxiety. I didn't look forward to games anymore because I was so afraid of making a mistake. And again, I would try and find any fathomable excuse to not start that game, to not play that game, because I didn't want to make a mistake, because that was a direct indication of my self-worth as a human being. And that was really challenging. And I was just kind of going through the motions at that point. I was going through the motions because it just didn't feel right to quit. I had dedicated so much of my life to softball. At that point, I had been playing for probably 14 years. And it just didn't feel right to say, I'm done here. So I was just kind of going through the motions. And I want to repeat that sentence again. I was just going through the motions because it didn't feel worth it to quit. How did something that was once the greatest thing in my life become something that just felt downright miserable? How did something that I once loved to do become something that I felt like I had to do? At the moment when I was 20 years old, I felt stuck. It felt like there was nothing that I could do. I knew that I lost motivation, but it felt like there was nothing that I could do to help re-spark that motivation. There was nothing that I could do to reignite that passion. And so I kind of just threw my hands up and said, put your head down, get through these last few months, and then you'll be done with this sport forever. And I think we can all probably reflect on a time in our lives where something felt that way, where something just started to feel monotonous. It wasn't giving us the same joy that it used to give us. It's not giving us the same love and passion that it used to give us. And so what I want to do with you all today is an exercise that I wish I had been introduced to when I was a collegiate athlete, an exercise that might have helped me re-spark that motivation, might have helped me re-spark that passion, and might have helped me kind of re-identify what that determination was. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take out your notebook if you have a notebook, or take out your phone and open the Notes app if you have your phone. And I want you to think about something that you're currently pursuing or something that's really important to you. And I want you to take just a few moments to write that down in your Notes app, in your notebook, whatever that may be, but something that you're currently pursuing that's really important to you. I have an example up on my slide. So I recently graduated with my PhD in sports psychology and motor behavior, and I want to continue to develop my skills. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to continue to develop my skills as an applied practitioner with athletes and performers. So that's something that's really important to me that I'm currently pursuing. So just take a few moments and jot down something that you're currently pursuing that's really important to you. And then from there, what I want you to do is read over that statement you just came up with. So read over that thing that's really important to you. And I want you to identify why that's important to you. So you've identified the what, you've identified something that you want to pursue. Now I want you to think about why is that important to you. So I want you to take a few moments, and again, in your notebook, in your Notes app, I want you to jot down why is that important to you. For me, again, I'm following my example that I want to continue to develop my skills as an applied practitioner. And the reason that that's important to me is because I want to be a resource and a source of support for athletes that I didn't feel like I had when I was an athlete. So again, take a few moments and reflect on why that statement is important to you. Amazing. So we have that initial what, we have that thing we're pursuing, and we have that first why. And that tends to be where we stop. That tends to be kind of where that reflection place ends. What I'm going to push you to do today is read over that why statement that you just came up with, the why statement that you just identified, and I want you to ask yourself, but why is that important to you? So you've identified your what, you've identified your first why. Now I want you to ask yourself, but why is that why important to me? So take a few moments and identify, why is that why important to you? So looking at that why from that second level. For me, the reason that it's so important that every athlete feels like I'm a resource and a source of support is because I believe that every athlete deserves to feel supported and empowered as a holistic human being in their pursuit of optimal performance. That's why being that resource and that source of support is important to me. So take a few moments. And then I'm going to challenge you one more time to look over that why that you just came up with, so that second level why. And I want you to ask yourself one more time, but why is that important to you? So following my example, the reason that it's so important for me that athletes feel empowered and supported as holistic human beings is because I want every athlete to realize that there's so much more than just their athletic performance, and it's my goal to create an environment where they feel empowered and supported regardless of their athletic outcomes so that they can develop that holistic sense of identity. So for a final time, reflect on, but why is that last why important to you? Amazing. So at this point, you have your what and you have your three whys. So the reason that I had you do this activity is because oftentimes when we're exploring our passion, when we're exploring our purpose, and we give that first answer only scratches the surface of what that true purpose is, of what that true passion is. When we understand our true purpose, when we understand our why, we're better able to persevere in the face of challenges. We're better able to persevere in the face of setbacks. We're better able to persevere in the face of obstacles. And we're better able to persevere on those days that might feel monotonous because we're grounded in that larger purpose and we understand that larger purpose. Understanding our why allows us to reconnect with our determination and allows us to sustain our motivation in pursuit of that determination. Ultimately, understanding our why allows us to shift from have to want to. When I reflect on my own experiences as a softball player, understanding my own why could have helped me shift softball into something that I loved to do again, instead of it being something that just felt like a job or just felt like something that I had to do. Understanding my why could have brought me back to that root of why I fell in love with the sport in the first place and reminded me that softball is supposed to be about fun and challenge and learning, and it's not just about success and perfection. It's my hope that we'll all leave here today with a deeper understanding of our purpose, our own passion, and our own determination. Thank you so much.